acknowledge. बैठ जाओ करते हैं. So what we'll do is I'll carry this chatter for a while. At about 11:30 we'll break for a break. By that time everybody else would have come. Then you can have your demonstration and then we can do some more. So the situation is that no matter where you look at, education is in a serious problem. And very interestingly, a few days ago there was a report, front page report in the newspaper that AICTE is saying that we will close down so many colleges, 500 colleges have already closed, no new colleges will come up for 2 years and so on and so forth. Which is fine because let us say those things are not written and now students have become knowledgeable enough not to go to those colleges. But this is the part which is very interesting. Tomorrow they will become knowledgeable enough to realize no point in going to school. What am I paying 10,000 rupees a month for? Earlier there was a mad rush, everybody opened a school, sometimes more than one school and so on and so forth. Neither the owner, nor the promoter, nor the principal, nor the teacher had any interest in education. But it was going on in a kind of a, called bhed chal or whatever, but course correction has happened. Management institutes are also feeling the same thing. So we are at a very interesting threshold where the officials have started acknowledging that they are not able to give meaningful education. And 1 million people turn 18 every month in this country. You know that CBSE 30 lakh people are taking the exam 10th and 12th together. So we have a very funny issue that we have this dream of a demographic dividend that we have the youngest population in the world, etc., etc. And now we are going to have a dread of a demographic nightmare because if these people are not skilled for the future, there is a problem. And that's what I really want to draw your attention to. So when we were in the pre-industrial age, youth was great because you had muscular power, you could do something, mehnat karunga, ye karunga, whatever. Now that physical power is no longer interesting. Then we came to the industrial society where you could work in factories and factories could be augmented and so on. Now, as you know, we are back to cognitive power. That is the only thing that matters, your cognitive power and the machine's cognitive power, and putting them in sync to be able to augment your productivity. Your age does not matter. A 70-year-old person can be as powerful in terms of solving problems or maybe better. Nobel Prizes have been won by people who are 90-year-old. So that idea of the youth being very important and we having this large number of young people which will be a great asset is no longer there. What is more important is how do we quickly learn new things? And this is what to me is the big challenge. The big challenge is, and let us be very clear, in the last few years you have heard of artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, blockchain, 3D printing, AR, VR, and actually holography is on the horizon. It is quite possible that the next year's session my hologram is here and things are happening. So about 10, right? And I'm not talking about the biology yet. CRISPR and RNA editors and so on and so forth. And this coronavirus is an example of biological and genetic engineering. Then the skills that people are saying are complex problem solving, critical thinking, creative thinking, emotional intelligence, people management, service orientation, negotiation, cognitive flexibility. This is around for last 5 years. We've been hearing these. How are you going to get ready with this? And the other problem is, it is not enough to have one of these skills. You have to have a significant number of these skills to be meaningful. It is not enough to have one of these skills and say, I am this. And therefore, we need to have a completely disruptive model of education. We don't know what the answer is, but that is what is exciting. To me, it is very exciting because in the history of science, we have had this very often. We have this, for example, if you remember, chemistry came out of alkane. So I think that now is the time, I don't know, now it doesn't mean right between 11 and 12, but the next few years is the time when teaching will change from the art of teaching to the science of learning. To some extent, medicine also went through that. Medicine was also like trial and error, this, that. In recent years, it has become a reasonable science. In fact,
If you look at it compared to chemistry and physics and so on, it isn't so much of a science. In fact, one of the very famous books is called The Youngest Science, where they talk about medicine as emerging to be a science. So what the challenge now to me is, and I'm very happy that he's come here, the challenge is how do we learn new things which nobody else knows. So I don't have a teacher, I don't have an AICT, I don't have this. Even when CBSE is now trying to push AI, they have no idea what AI is, but they are looking at it. So the whole issue to me is that institutional learning has to be forgotten for a while. So how do we connect learners and, I say, knowledge? I'm not saying learners and the learned, because there is no learner. You have learners and knowledge which is getting constantly generated, and how do we spread that out, and how do we have a democratization of education? One thing is very clear in my mind, that mobile is the tool for it. Mobile is already ubiquitous, it is with everybody, and interestingly, it is not used for education. Schools actually ban mobile phone rather than using it for learning. And what is very interesting is that the UNESCO for last several years has been having around February, March something called Mobile Learning Week. And the 2020 Mobile Learning Week is from 2nd to 4th March. The theme this time is AI for reducing inequities, etc., etc. But that is the theme. Earlier theme has been connectivity, it has talked about women's education. That mobile is the best tool for women's education. All that you are saying, beti padhao, vagera, mobile se padhao. For books is the best storage medium. You can never have an adequate library with physical books, etc. in all the places where young would learn, but you can have it on the mobile. In my mobile Kindle, I even have a book which is called How to Read a Book. So the point is that all these resources, and then if you look at YouTube, etc., there's huge amount of resources, TED Talks, etc. So it's a very funny situation. We have all the resources. In English there is a phrase called water everywhere, not a drop to drink. But this is not because it is saline water, it is because you don't have the capability of doing this. And since it's fashionable nowadays that you must either talk of Ram or Hanuman or I am fair Jamban, so in Tulsidas Ramayana it says, Sakal Padarat hai Jagmahi, Karamheen Pavat Nahi. Who is the Karamheener? Who doesn't know how to learn from a mobile? Who doesn't know how to learn by himself? And I'm very happy that this comes, because autonomous learning is going to be the number one thing. All training must lead to you becoming a better autonomous learner to be able to negotiate on this thing. AI is a great tool for it. Now I have tweeted this quotation from somebody very interesting who says that education is the killer application of deep learning. So our basic motivation for doing some of this is not just to clap that something very good is happening, but to see that that is going to transform education. And in bits and pieces, this is what is going to happen. So all the solutions towards this will happen. And my proposition for the solution is something like this. This will evolve over time. You remember just at one point of time, we thought of an atom as having the nucleus and then the electron and so on, and gradually found that nucleus as something here, there, something was there. So to me, the simple model of education that I am proposing is there's an educator, there's a person who wants to learn, and there is this third thing which is to be negotiated. Now the educator today of tomorrow will have to be an AI familiar educator. So I have used the word AI fluent smart educator. And I will build on why I am talking, not just the technologies. It's very interesting because what are we talking about? We are talking about machine learning. So what about human learning? And we therefore have to see what we can learn from machine learning about human learning, what we can do. And Microsoft in 2017 has coined a phrase, in fact it has a group, it's not very active now. In 2017 they created a group called Machine Teaching Group. So if learning is happening to the software, somebody is organizing that thing, and he is the machine teacher or deep teacher or whatever you want to say. So this is one very important aspect, that human learning and machine learning must be seen as supportive of each other rather than competitors. So today we have this issue about, will teachers' job be taken away by technology? Very often people ask, will technology take away teachers' jobs? And my response to that is, technology will not take away teachers' jobs, but teachers who know technology will take away the jobs of teachers who don't. But forget that. The point is that we need more and more autonomous learners, and I have said this very often, I still suggest to you, there's a very famous book by Anthony Sheldon called The Fourth Education Revolution, which I think everybody in education must read, because it is one of the recent books and the best books, because it analyzes what does a teacher do when taking class, what does a learner do when attending class, and how can AI help in each of these steps. What I am now trying to say, first we said we have this educator, the learners will have to become autonomous learners. So the goal of formal education, traditional education, school education, is to create people who are autonomous learners, rather than teaching them everything. And I have drawn attention to this. This is very well articulated by a guy called Guy Claxton, who used the phrase called learning power. And this is very important because he begins with he has a very nice video where he tells you how, if you go to school, you start suffering from what he calls tautitis. And tautitis means that I cannot learn anything until I am taught. And this is very interesting because in the NCERT maths books for class 9, 10th, 11th, 12th, everywhere there are two things in the appendix. One is something on proofs, the other is on mathematical modeling. No child, no student ever studies that because it is not taught them. They're carrying that book for 200 days to the school and back, but they won't flip through it and try to learn it. And it is interesting, that's one of my criticisms of CBSE. The CBSE is talking extra about teaching you AI, but that mathematical modeling which is already there, it is not bothering to pay any attention to. I once got a call from somebody, sir, आप machine learning सिखाते हैं, ये तुमको y equal to mx plus c आता है. So the point is, without knowing mathematical modeling, they suddenly think AI is some kind of magic which will do that. Which it is. But if you want to be a learner, you should have some idea of that. So the autonomous learner, the AI-enabled educator, and the third thing is the idea that I'm trying to promote called co-learning spaces. See, the point is that when we talk about mobile learning, it is very often, because we don't see why I use that phrase from the art of teaching to the science of learning, we still don't know how learning happens. Most of the things that you study in B.Ed, etc., are very empirical. We finally agree that each of us is a unique person, and therefore the exact conditions under which learning happens best is to be done. Whereas what the traditional educationists do, they have cognitive behavior, this, that, all kinds of theories, which is very limited. And Clayton Christensen has pointed this out very well. He says the problem with research on education is that you have a certain sample on which you take something. And now you want to generalize it. And it never works. So there is a very famous term which is used in education very often, but probably applies elsewhere as well, called the Hawthorne effect. Now, Hawthorne effect is a very interesting phenomenon that this Hawthorne discovered that whenever a new pilot happens, it is successful. But when you put it for practice for a large number of people, it fails. And the reason that they found was that whenever you do something new and innovative, everybody who gathers is a supporter of that idea. And therefore it succeeds. But when you give it to ordinary people, they are no longer. And that is why he says that Clayton Christensen says educational research is meaningless. All that you can say in that particular group of those people, with those instructors, with those people, it worked. But whether it is scalable or not, you cannot say. Which is different from science, etc., where when you look at an experiment, do something, you can probably take it to more generalizable kind of thing. So now that we've looked at this broad picture, the next thing is, so while deep learning is the killer application for education, how do we do it? And one of the goals of whatever we are doing, and today we have Karthik, and then we have Dr. Rajiv Tyagi, and then we have Ravi and everybody else, Ramesh Sharma. We're trying to build the answer to these questions. So how would we actually do it? Computer vision is a very interesting example of machine learning. Karthik will show you a demo. Have all of you gone to our WhatsApp group? I have posted a number of resources there. And I have posted 5 videos on generalities. One of them by Fifi Lee is very good, and she's a leader in this field. 5 videos on generality, 5 pieces of text on generalities, and 5 videos on deep lens itself. So the idea was that it can help you understand a little bit before, or also as follow-up after this is done. But what I want you to think of is how will computer vision technology help education? That is the more important part. That it can help driverless cars is fine. Help driverless cars, I know, but can I create out of that teacherless learners? Right? And where can we do that? So I would want you to continuously think of that. And what we are trying to say is, we have the technology people, 2 people who know this and can do this, but what should we do for education? And I want you to forget about attendance, etc., and verification during exams, etc. That's not part of the teaching process. That's an additional thing that we do no matter what way you want to do. To me, that's not interesting. What are you looking at? How does it help in a better teacher-learner experience? And this is very important because while we have the classroom everywhere and everybody talks about it, any person who has paid attention to the problem of teaching knows that the classroom is a very ineffective way of teaching. The best agreed method of teaching is a good teacher and a good learner, both excited about it, working together. This is acknowledged right from our, now I have to say that, right from our Upanishad and everything, you have one-on-one education. Why did we do this? And in fact, many of you who would have read this, the very aristocratic people in UK and in India had private tutors. They did not send children to school, they had private tutors. In fact, in one of my groups, somebody posted, I am posted in Gurgaon, I am looking for a school and money is no consideration. If money is no consideration, have private tutors. So the reason we send children to school is because we cannot afford the cost of a one-on-one private education, which is the best thing. So Benjamin Bloom has this thing, it's called the 2 Sigma theory. Benjamin Bloom had asked in 1980s that can technology ever give us an education which is as good as a one-on-one education? And for so far, it couldn't because technology was largely a broadcasting technology. So it could go, give the same thing to many people. In MOOCs, you give the same thing to millions of people, but you were not giving the learning experience. You were still doing broadcasting at low cost to a large number of people. It's AI which for the first time is allowing that to happen. That we can do a personalization in terms of the learning goals, etc., etc. So while I don't want to preempt this, but I want you to think during this session. Today's session is on computer vision, and we'll see this. But think of how this could be used in education. If the more innovative your solution is, the better you are placed, because then you will be needing that kind of a thing. One thing that I can kind of trigger you with this, and as I said, don't take attendance, operational thing. One very interesting thing that happens, and there is a further subset even during some of the videos it might be said, that one of the big things about computer vision is that it's not just facial recognition, it can also observe facial expression. If I can observe facial expression, then from a teaching perspective it is very interesting, because I know how you are reacting to what is being transacted. So without your saying that I didn't understand or I didn't quite like it, etc., your face reflects that. Unless you are a poker face person and give some other reflection, etc., by and large your face gives away that what the hell are you talking about? I didn't quite get it, I don't agree with it, whatever. And this will be a major tool in the personalization of the learning experience. So then you're talking one-on-one conversation. to be able to do that. So that is one interesting application. This is already being done. It is already being done in the context, as I said, education is always been considered the poor opportunity. So this technology, I actually know people who are running companies on this, is being used by marketeers, filmmakers, etc. So when a film trailer, now you must be seeing all these trailers that are being launched. The purpose of those trailers launch is to see how you react, and then accordingly, enough time to edit in the movie and change. So now that you see some of these things on your mobile phone, if you give permission, the person can see your expression as you watch whatever the video is. It can be a trailer of a movie, it can be an advertising thing, it can be a political message, and they are able to see how you are reacting. And that helps a lot. So the person I know who launched this company called Monet is now having Hollywood as his customers and so on and so forth. And clearly once this becomes cheap enough, education also will find a place, because the difference between a good education and a bad education can be quite serious, especially when we look at performance. We look at people who are failing, etc. Now, imagine an education where nobody fails and everybody learns what they set out to learn. Just imagine the value of that. So that's the one thing that I am triggering you, but the more innovative things you come up with, the more interesting it would be. Also, I'd be very happy for you to keep thinking of ideas as to how do we create a learning community suitable for this. So we are saying that one is the formal institutional mechanism, CBSE, UGC, AICT, etc., etc. But can we have something like what Kaggle has become, a community of learners who are in this space of AI in education for newer things. So these are the kind of things which trigger this. We will have a break, have Karthik do this, and have all of you seen the videos that I have posted there? Unlikely, right? So what we'll do is, after he's done this thing, we can maybe go through some of those videos collectively, and also, because very often what happens, if it is there, you don't really see it, but I'd rather have you see a couple of things which are collective. One of them is very interesting by Siraj Rawal. Siraj Rawal has also been discredited on the internet for various things of plagiarism and copying. And so what he would do, he would pick up some code from GitHub, then show it as his code and so on, and these practices are not appreciated. But still, discounting that part, the information he is giving is quite valuable. He gives you a several weeks plan as to how to learn these things, what are the various aspects, etc. So that is the fifth one that I've given in the first series and so on. So maybe we'll have a break and then we can start with this thing.
It's 11:30.
Yeah.